Hi, I'm Jenna Fallbush with another episode of Patents TV. Today, Ruth Ziolkowski, the president of Don Johnston, presents Universal Protocol for Accommodations in Reading, otherwise known as uPAR. This data-driven assessment tool will help you identify your students who will benefit from reading accommodations. uPAR is a powerful tool that is used by the Patents Aiming for Achievement grant teams. To learn more about this grant opportunity, please visit our website. Now I'd like to welcome Ruth.
Hello, everyone. This is Ruth Ziolkowski, and I'm from Don Johnston Incorporated. Today, we're going to be talking about uPAR, Universal Protocol for Accommodations in Reading. We know many students these days have accommodations for reading, whether they're on a 504 plan, an ELL plan, an IEP plan, or even looking at our state testing. It often includes accommodations for reading. And that's because we know that we still have a large majority of students who struggle with reading. And while we provide them reading intervention, which makes their independent reading get better, there's still a gap that occurs between their independent reading level and their grade level. And so that's where we count on reading accommodations to fill the gap. Oftentimes, though, getting this decision right is a problem. As research is telling us now that teachers are no better than chance at determining whether a student would benefit from an accommodation. And that's because we often have qualitative types of decisions, such as, have I used this before? Am I comfortable with this? Is it allowable on the test? Or we have just checklists of different accommodations we put in place for the students. And oftentimes these accommodations aren't even implemented with fidelity. That's where uPAR Universal comes into play. How do we quickly and easily identify the students who would benefit and understand the benefit for both the student as well as the teacher? So let's look at uPAR. Basically, it's a first-of-a-kind type of data gathering tool. It compares the student against themselves in 3 different conditions. In addition to doing this, it's also group administered. So we can identify this data for large groups of students. We know that some schools have to have up to 40% of their students who are struggling with reading and still reading below proficient. So we're going to compare 3 different conditions. The first condition is the student's independent skill. The second is simulating an adult reader, which is the most common read aloud. And the third is a text reader or computer reader for that reading accommodation. So what we do is ask you to think about the students that you're most concerned about in the area of reading. It could be all your students who have scored below proficient on their standardized test. It could be students who are 2 or more grade levels below in their independent reading. It could be students who are on IEP or ELL plans. Just start somewhere. You gather the students into a computer lab, or you can assign them this assessment. And basically, you give them some quick directions, make sure they can hear with their headphones, and then the students are off and running on their own. The students will see screens that look like this. This is where they can listen with their headphones, make sure their auditory is right. And when they're going to start choosing a passage. Before the students start, the teachers will have gone in and given us 2 pieces of information. What is the student's current grade level and what is their independent reading level? So in the situation of a student who's independently reading at 5th grade level but is an 8th grader, when we start at the independent reading level, this would be a 5th grade reading passage. The student chooses a passage, they see the passage and read it independently, and then they take a comprehension quiz. This comprehension quiz consists of questions that are main idea, factual, inferential, and vocabulary. Then the student moves up to their grade level, which again in our scenario was an 8th grade, and they repeat this process using a human voice to simulate a human reader. So the human narrator will read this to the student, and then they will definitely do the comprehension quizzes at the end. Finally, they will have a text reader condition, which is, again, the computerized voices. In a text reader condition, we also simulate by allowing the students to change the rate, and also we show the word-by-word highlighting. We will do the comprehension quizzes as well. Based on how the student does, we will either go harder or less difficult than their grade level to try to get an idea of where the students land. So this is the individual student data you will see. So again, the 3 columns represent the 3 conditions: the silent read, the adult or human reader, and the text reader or the computer reader. Then you see over here the silhouette shows this is an 8th grader, and the book identifies that it's the independent reading ability of a 5th grade. The green, yellow, and red, this is modeled off of informal reading inventories. Green is independent level, that the student can read independently. Yellow is still instructional, and red would mean frustrational level text or comprehension. So you can see in this condition that the student they did well at their grade level. So that's the first thing that's really exciting, is that there was a 3 grade level difference from 5th through 8th grade to get this student to grade level. We decided to check a little bit above their grade level and found that even with a text reader, the student actually did instructionally in both conditions, but a little bit better with a text reader. If these conditions were exactly equal, we would still try to encourage the student to use a text reader so that they could be more independent in their reading of their worksheets and their homework assignments and anything that's generated. Now here's a different student example, and you can clearly see this is an 8th grader reading at 6th grade level, and it's pretty obvious to see that these 2 conditions did not help the student, and that their silent read and independent reading was still their best mode. It's still below grade level, but we know that we would have to develop this skill if we're going to use this as a reading accommodation. So in the meantime, we don't want to use this as the formal reading accommodation until that skill would be developed. This is group level data, and this really helps teachers identify for a whole class of students where their students are at. Oftentimes we know we need differentiated instruction, but we never really know who needs what, and this will tell us. So we haven't seen an example yet of this, but the green are students who actually comprehended above their reading level with the read aloud accommodation. They're students who get to grade level. We know that this large group of students in both of these cases are the students who need some simple reading accommodations. Then there's students in this category that means that they were able to go above their independent reading level, but not quite to grade level. And again, you'd want to look at that data to say, are they close or is it still a large gap? And then there's students that don't benefit, like we saw. You can see between these 2 examples, that the students, there's a variability of the students, but in general, we had a little bit of everything, and that's an important piece, that every student is different, every group of students is going to be different, but this is a simple way to identify that. In both of these groups, we give you an average grade level increase, and you can see that to have the text read aloud was a difference of 2.5 grade levels, which is very fantastic, because again, that's showing the kind of power of reading accommodations, and I think a lot of people really never understood the value of a reading accommodation. There is in both of these groups a difference between the human reader and the text reader, and we're finding that for a lot of students, a text reader is more of an acquired skill. To get used to listening to those computerized voices takes some time to acquire those skills. So let's look at one more example and kind of a case study of a girl named Kaylee who's in the 3rd grade. And this is her intervention data. You can see she's in 3rd grade. She's still reading independently at a 1.4 grade level. But her recommendation with her intervention data is saying that she would best be served by instructional materials prepared at the pre-kindergarten level. This means outside of reading, which Kaylee really, and when it comes to her reading intervention, needs those lower level reading passages. But this means what will the teacher do for science and social studies and all the other content level? So instead of giving Kaylee only materials at her pre-kindergarten level, they looked at Kaylee's uPAR data, and they found that Kaylee could actually comprehend at a 5th grade level. So she was able to comprehend 2 grade levels above even her independent reading level, and the difference between of her grade level, and the difference between her independent reading level is 1, 2, 3, 4 grade levels difference, which is very significant. You can also see for Kaylee that she really hasn't really acquired the ability to use a text reader. She doesn't do as well with that. So the teachers decided, since she did so well with a human audio, that they would take the time to have her practice and get familiar with a text reader. So Kaylee used Snap and Read Universal as her text reader. She was using it about 20 minutes a day. And she was listening to a lot of text at the grade levels of 4 through 7, and we learned that data through her Snap and Read data. Several months later, they went back and reassessed Kaylee with her uPAR because they wanted to see if for her standardized test they should put her back in a human reader condition or if she had acquired the skill of a text reader. So 2 things you notice here is that first, Kaylee acquired the ability to use a text reader, which makes her even more independent. Her mom will tell you that she doesn't read to her anymore, and which is a huge, again, boost for Kaylee, both in terms of her independence. But the other thing Kaylee found out about herself is that because she's listening to harder text, she's even able to comprehend even more difficult text. And now she's able to comprehend text at a 7th grade level for human audio and the 6th grade level for a text reader, which again is a huge outcome. Now we see how just a simple reading accommodation closes that gap. Giving Kaylee this data made her so much more confident and made her understand why she needed a read aloud accommodation. It helped her initiate the use. So instead of the teacher saying to Kaylee, "Why don't you have this read aloud?" Kaylee was initiating that because she was confident and she was trying really hard texts. So you can see there's some very big benefits of really knowing which students can benefit from a reading accommodation, giving that data to the student and to the teacher so that they can provide differentiated instruction and differentiated accommodations for all their students. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you give uPAR, Universal Protocol for Accommodations in Reading, a try.
Thanks, Ruth, for your presentation of uPAR. We really appreciate your time. And that's all we have for this episode of Patents TV. I'll see you next time.